Okay, here we are live. It's Wednesday today, October 9th, and it's about 5:20 p.m. on a Wednesday evening.
And I want to wish everybody Gemara Chatima Tova, Ashana Tova Matuka, a year of miracles and wonders and transformation in the nature of the world, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Denoting the second stage of Mashiach and how this relates to the time that we're in. We're going to talk a little bit about the hurricane and a deeper meaning of understanding hurricane and the winds of change. And what is the deeper meaning behind Aseret Yimeh Teshuva that we're in, the 10 days of repentance that we're in. And I'm going to go ahead and allow my husband to start.
Okay, you sure you don't want to speak for a couple of minutes and then I'll chime in?
No, you start.
I want me to start? Okay. Yeah. So the main thing I wanted to talk with this morning and last night, we were studying with a friend of ours, Esther, the Yam Kipper Sicha, which is preparing us for Yam Kipper and how the Rebbe studies the Yam Kipper Sicha. We study it every year, but every year new light and new information comes from the Sicha as our minds are changed over the year. We see it, new information comes to light each time we read it over each year. But I wanted to say, the main point, two things I wanted to say were that just as Shabbat, the light of Shabbat and the Behidr, how we observe Shabbat, determines the light and the strength and the power that goes out in the following week. The Shabbat goes out, how we observe Shabbat goes out to the following week. Also, on the Aseret Yimeh Teshuva, and this time, this very powerful time, the light that's coming in during this 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yam Kipper, the Aseret Yimeh Teshuva goes out into the entire timeline, past, present, and future, into the whole year. So
this year seems to be a very powerful year because Yam Kipper is actually coming out on Shabbat, and there's great significance in the numbers 10 and 7.
October 7th
right.
is the date for is that the gematria of Yom Kippur?
No. If we count from Nisan until Tishrei, right? Because it says that this month shall be to you the head of all months, the month of Nisan, because it represents bringing in Chidush into the world, because God created the world in Tishrei time, but in Nisan represents the Jewish people bringing the change that is meant to be in the way God initially created the world. So if you count from Nisan to Tishrei, it's Tishrei is the 7th month, and Yom Kippur is the 10th day. So there you go. Set the 10th day of the 7th month, 10-7. So it seems like October 7th seemingly has an association. What happened on that day last year, which was on Simchas Torah, has a direct connection with Yom Kippur because Yom Kippur is on the 10th day of the 7th month. And this year, the 10th day is coming out on the 7th day of the week. So there is something very powerful happening. And just wanted to say that it's interesting. I was telling my husband that there is a song that had been circulating after October 7, very famous one in Israel.
Hurricane.
That's
October Rain.
October Rain, and she talks about, I'm still getting over this hurricane. And, whether a lot of times the weather winds.
The power of our speech.
Beyond the power of speech, but emotions. I'm talking emotions.
Okay.
Have a direct correlation in spirituality with the weather. Like, I'm feeling stormy today.
You can see that we've closed all the shutters in our house. So behind us, usually we have
just a precaution.
The window. We have our shutters closed.
Just a precaution. I absolutely believe that it's going to pass over. It's passing over, but I am praying because I had this feeling in my heart when I heard that it was hitting the people of Tampa the way it is, and it sounds like it's even worse than Andrew was, and so usually I had this like unawareness to remember that even though we're not getting it, hey, we should be praying for the people who are getting it. I have these people in my prayer where the hurricane is hitting, praying for God to nullify the
Effects.
the effects of this storm. And since we have the power of interpretation, as we've said many times over, I was hoping through interpreting the Sikha of Yam Kipper, which is connected to October 7, they spoke about hurricane and the power of speech. Like they kept on singing this song, and here we are in October, and there's these storms. There's like this is the fourth
Storm
one
surge
that
and
hit,
flooding and Helene, Hurricane Helene,
hoping to
Hurricane Milton.
Hoping to insert with a calm and still heart a deeper, higher, more blessed meaning of what hurricane is. We are going through a big change, especially this year, and just think about how we are, releasing all those emotions, all those beliefs that don't serve us are being released, and that represents the winds of change. And that creates a complete transformation in the nature of the world, because as we change our beliefs within ourselves, it begins to vibrate in all the attributes of the soul, and creating a higher will to vibrate within our system, and therefore butterfly effect going out into the rest of the world, creating a wave of new consciousness. Anyway, I'm going to let you.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish what I wanted to say.
Sure.
The main two things I got through my first one, how the Shabbos and the Aseret Yimeh Teshuva, the Shabbos goes out into the week and the Aseret Yimeh Teshuva goes out into the entire year, the whole timeline. But the other thing I wanted to say, as we were studying the Yam Kipper Sikha, it made me have like a metaphor or between the pill pool of the going back and forth, how the Rebbe goes back and forth to he knows the nature of the human mind, and to go back and forth to break down our the patterns, the old patterns, to allow this new light to come in. He does it in a certain way to like break through our to allow it to permeate our minds.
Because it's two waves of consciousness.
Right, so it's like
the
waves.
Old pattern and the new pattern. That there's an old pattern and there's a new pattern.
So it's like a pill pool, a back and forth. How he goes back and forth with issues and discourses, like two waves coming in a bathtub or in the ocean, combining forces and coming together to a synergy, a superstorm, a synergy where they combine their energies and become a bigger wave when they come together and move on. And how he goes back and forth through these different discourses in the Yam Kipper Sikha.
And he mentions that through the disruption, a greater intensity of light is able to be drawn from the darkness. So we feel we are able to facilitate the change in a more productive manner and more intensified manner. Is there anything else you want to mention?
That's about it.
Sure.
Well, as we go through the video, I might add something.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay. So in learning the Yam Kipper Sikha, the Rebbe starts out with everything that we do. We start off with a blessing when we learn Torah, and how much more so when we're found in an auspicious time and space that we're in. He was talking about 770, and he was talking about the 9th day of Tishrei, which is right before Yam Kippur. And it's interesting because he talks a little bit about physics. He says that how there is height and depth that can be thought of as two separate things, or they can actually, when one is wedged into the other, can be thought of as one thing. And here he's talking about duality versus oneness. When we see time as having a beginning and an end, and it creates in our mind this idea that there's separateness. When we are able to see oneness, and that the timeline, that the end of the timeline becomes wedged into the beginning, which is the true reality of the way things really are. It cancels out the duality, it becomes one. And that's very, very significant, and we'll discuss a little bit later why that is so. And he says, I'm just going to mention this, which I thought was interesting. He says, unlike length and width, which are two separate things, cannot become one. And I don't know, what came into my mind of length and width was a cross. Not to say that I'm, saying anything against anything, but when I see length and width, I see a cross, and they cannot meet and they cannot become one, which leaves us in duality. In any case, I'm going to talk about the Rebbe says that the Torah has the power in it when it makes a psak din to change the nature of the world. And built into the nature of the world from the beginning of time was this idea of the end being wedged into the beginning. And how is this so? Well, I'll tell you how. The Torah denotes a psak din that says there are 10 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yam Kippur. But in essence, there's only 7 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yam Kippur. So by the Torah saying that there's 10 days in between, it's already wedging the beginning into the end, thus creating the oneness consciousness, only it's dormant and hidden. Because as we know, when God created the world, he created the world with a base, which is representing two, which is duality, and he separated the heavens from the earth. And that duality consciousness created a contraction and veiling of the light. Maybe you do want to put the bird away.
I'm planning on bringing the bird into the video. At the end of the video, I want to bring the bird and show the bird to our viewers.
You want her making all the noise?
She'll be okay. She's far away.
All right, fine. I'm going to include it in being in a place of acceptance of inviting this.
Right. If she gets worse, we will take her out.
Right. Part of the ability to come into oneness is to be able to be in a place of acceptance with everything, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, whether it seemingly looks like I did something wrong or I did something right. It's all part of the plan. That acceptance, that place of being maskim and acceptance, allows us to shift our consciousness to go into a oneness reality. And brings a lot of peace.
We have
shalom.
2 people watching. We got 1 like, and I just saw someone give us a heart.
Thank you.
Who's Orly? Orly says hi.
Hi, Orly. Thank you. Hi, Orly. You guys can give me comments if you like it. That'll be fun. So, in any case, when the Torah makes a psak din, it's already saying that it's infused into the nature of the world, this oneness consciousness. So Mashiach is not something if we do tshuva, if things are changed, no, it's already built in. It's a built-in mechanism. It's happening, baby. Whether we understand this or not, it's happening. It's a plan in motion. So okay, so Aseret Yimeh Teshuva has 10 days. Let me explain to you, what are we talking about here? Well, in creation, there's a lot of things that are made up of 10. So 10 represents literally the fabric of creation. There are 10 utterances in which God created the world with, and that breaks into 10 spheres, which breaks into us into 10 midos. And then we have the 10 the 10 commandments that are meant to refine those attributes, of which we said earlier that God created a world in order for the Jewish people to renew creation and bring a refinement and a transformation into creation. So the first 2 days of Aseret Yimeh Teshuva is Rosh Hashanah, and then we have 7 days in between, which psak din of the Torah says, no, there's 10, which is closing the circle. And then we have Yam Kipper. So the first 2 days of Rosh Hashanah is actually Chachma and Bina. The 7 in between is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. And Yam Kippur is Das. Das is when we get it. So what's really happening here? He says, being that Rosh Hashanah is the Rosh, it's the head, It has what to say because it's the conductor. So what we decide, what is decided on Rosh Hashanah, just like the head is the conductor on our body to all the organs in our body, so too Rosh Hashanah and the Ratzon, the will that we put out on Rosh Hashanah, is the conductor of the way the 365 days of the years are going to be conducted. Are we clear with that? Okay. So what's happening is that in creation, when there was initially, it seems some contraction and duality, that the world was introduced through duality, the initial will that God created the world was hidden from mankind. Why? Because if God would introduce all of his consciousness and oneness consciousness into a vessel that is not meriting to receive it or not capable of receiving because it doesn't believe that it merits, the world would not be able to endure it. The world would just go back to nothingness, to Ayin Be'efes, Mamish. What happened was that in order to maintain the world and in all its levels of creation, he withdrew the initial light that he created the world with, and thus created duality consciousness in order to give way to allow creation to exist. However, the Jewish people's job is to refine all the days of creation. So again, Rosh Hashanah being Chachma and Bina, represents the initial will of God that was hidden from creation. Then you have 7 days of which the world was actually revealing God's attributes of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Yesod, and Malchus being Shabbos, was actually revealed and introduced into creation. However, it was unrefined. It was coarse. It represents the coarseness of the attributes of the animal soul. So the Torah and the mitzvahs that we been doing has been in order to refine the emotional attributes of the soul. And so what happens is, if you can picture Chachma and Bina, there's an initial will, and this will is hidden. That will is oneness consciousness. God hides that from us. He creates duality. In duality, we have choices. And in those choices, when we are holding ourselves and changing our nature, changing anger to be more calm and transforming our attributes and refining our attributes as we do in the counting of Sphira, that 7 times 7 is 49. We one into the other, where we're elevating, refining, transforming. That's the work of Gullus. That's the work when what's in Gullus? What's exile? God's deeper internal will, which is our deeper will, is in exile. We are in exile from our true will. So understand this: when a person is functioning from an external will, they will attract giluyim, meaning revelations that have to do with the external will. But in the time of Mashiach, when the work is done, and the Rebbe said we elevated all the sparks, we are no longer needing to refine and do the pilpul back and forth of questioning everything anymore. That's why I said the key is acceptance of everything as being part of the plan.
Acceptance.
No matter what it looks like, it's all good. It's part of what God wants. It's what God initiated. To have the eyes of what the Baal Shem Tov, what do I mean by this? I want to go just a little bit into this so I don't forget this important point. He says, the way the Baal Shem Tov explained to us, acceptance means that whatever I see, whatever I hear the other person telling me, whatever I think, it's all part of it.
Part of the plan.
It's all part of me. And you come into this place of acceptance. Can I refine it? Can I tweak it? Can I make it a little better? Sure. But in order to go to the next step, you have to go to a place of acceptance. I the children I have, the husband I have, the house I have, the parnasa I have, the challenges I have. It's all, I ate the wrong food last night. I shouldn't have eaten so late last night. Oh, it was part of the plan. Oh, I had someone tell me in the morning that I shouldn't be eating so much sugar, told me about my ketone diet. That was part of the plan. It intensified the message even more. Everything I accept as being a part of my ability to go into a higher consciousness. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. We were on an airplane from San Francisco to Fort Lauderdale, actually to Atlanta, and it was late coming out of San Francisco, an hour late. So we knew we might have going to miss our connection in Atlanta. So as we were getting off the plane, we were back. So we should have just accepted the fact that maybe we would have missed and just be relaxed, and we're not going to get off this flight, zip zap, just be patient and let the other people move. But we kind of were in a hurry. We were running through the airport and everything. And at the last moment, we figured out that the plane had already left. Our connection already left. We were 5 minutes late, and the gate was already closed, and we had to go book another flight, which was an hour or 2 hours later. But this the acceptance. That's part of acceptance is whatever happens, you miss your flight, you get stuck in Atlanta, whatever happens is part of God's plan. It's Hashkata Pratis, an acceptance of everything that happens.
So guess what? I accepted the fact that I didn't have the ability to relax and just go with the flow. I accepted even that.
Right,
because
we're a little bit uptight.
Right. So anyway, going into the next idea. So while we're in exile in the external will, we are questioning everything. That's the idea of 6 days you shall work by the sweat of your brow. We have a machlekes l'shem shamayim. We have pilpul in the learning of Torah, back and forth arguments. This level of explanation, this level of explanation, it's all part of the pilpul to refine the midos of the animal soul. But amen. Once the animal soul, however, is refined and elevated, we want to access now that hidden will that was hidden from us initially in creation, because now we're ready. Once all the attributes have been refined, now you're ready to access that hidden will, which is the oneness consciousness. And it starts by being in a place of acceptance. Okay? However, I lost my train of thought for a second. So when we come into Malchus is the ability to accept. By the way, Shabbos is connected with acceptance. And acceptance means that you're not questioning anymore. You're seeing that everything you see everything from a place of oneness. And that becomes easier when you're accepting everything that you're seeing, everything that you're hearing from the other as part of this, that actually the world is coming to serve you. Everything that is coming in your Daled Amos is there to serve you for a greater purpose, to bring you to a higher place. Once you do that, now you're able to access that hidden will of oneness. And that is not in the soul, it's in the body. See, this is where there's a shift. So what happens? It says that when you begin, he says that we establish a service of kedusha, and he says, and it's a very strong level of kedusha that we establish, as it takes even more strength and power of malim b'kodesh to go to the next level. Because we already established that we practice halacha a certain way, which was in order to purify the animal soul. But in order to go to the atzmos, to the source energy, which is connected with Yam Kipper, takes even greater intensity to change something that you know is already established as kedusha, of having a significant purpose in creation, in the practice of this mitzvah. It takes a much more intense will and power. You have to be a nachshon. You have to be a nachshon ben minadam. You have to go against all that which makes any sense to you. Like that girl said in the video,
yes,
that you had a podcast. He was making me listen. People are beginning to tap into this.
Human and holy, or human and holy.
So she was saying that, something's got to give, something's got to change, because we keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And she brought up the story of Kriyas Yamsuf and how, we left Egypt, and here we have
3 groups of Jews. One wanted to go back to Egypt. One just wanted to sit and pray. One, we have to move on into the Dead Sea.
No, that was the right one.
The right one.
One wanted to basically go back to Egypt and to give up. They said, even though we didn't have what we had, it's a place of comfort. We're comfortable there. We know what we don't have, and we can work with that.
One wanted to fight the
One
Egyptians.
wanted to go to war and said, we're not going to give in. We're gonna fight the Egyptians. We're going to go to war. Does this sound familiar? One wanted to actually pray, which means I don't want to have to deal with all this. It's overwhelming me. I'm just going to pray.
Sit and pray.
And I think that one actually group said they're just going to commit massive suicide.
Right.
I think. Anyway, Moshe went and asked God, what do we do? And God said, what's the problem? Just
move forward.
Keep moving forward. And
trudge on.
And only Nachshon ben Aminadav, who actually is of the ancestry of King David.
And he said, if you're going to name someone, name him Nachshon, if you want a strong name.
And so David HaMelech comes from Nachshon ben Aminadav. And he started to walk into the Yam Suf without, yes, I see a body of water in front of me. Yes, I see the Egyptian behind me. But God said, move forward. So without thinking twice, he started to move forward, which is what this Yam Kipper Sikha is all about. So if we're going to do a mitzvah now, it has to be done with a oneness consciousness. It can no longer be from a place of duality. And when we are suppressing the animal soul,
Gib Meinhardt says the zenith of oneness is compared to being a king because all of creation is inherited upon understanding the reality of oneness.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. That's why we say in the famous prayer, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad.
Yes.
God is one. In actuality, we have a distortion of what is real and what is not real, having a feeling of separateness. I was telling a friend of mine yesterday when we were learning that Paro had used his power for himself. It was very, all self-engaging. And that was because he saw himself as separate from the rest of the people. But in essence, anything that he does to himself is affecting the rest of the people, and vice versa. So if he would have, in other words, the more you do for others in the acts of goodness and kindness, the more you're actually expanding yourself, the more you're in a place of selfishness and it's all about me, the more you close down your vibration frequency, and you basically go back to nothingness. So that duality consciousness does not serve. Anyway, I wanted to go, what else did I want to say? Okay, so we are now going into what they call the 50th gate of Bina, which is denoting a change in the nature of the world. The Rambam talks about 2 stages of Mashiach. In the first stage of Mashiach, it says there will be no change in the nature of the world. Olam keminhago noheg. In fact, it says, let it not rise up in our hearts to believe that we're supposed to be seeing big miracles and changes in the nature of the world. The only thing that changes is that the nations of the world no longer hinder the Jewish people from performing Torah and mitzvahs. And that was in the time of 1990, from 1988 to 1992.
The fall of communism.
In the fall of communism, we saw
the Iron Curtain.
The Iron Curtain went down in places that we could not light menorahs. We saw,
Cold War.
Open miracles. But in the second stage of Mashiach, which I believe we have just entered into, is a transformation in the actual nature of the world.
Shinui b'maseh brachis.
Shinui b'maseh brachis. And the famous pasuk that I spoke about before that denotes that is Umaleya haaretz, the land is filled, Dea et Hashem, of the knowing of God, Kemayim layam mechosim, as water to the sea is covering. So it's interesting that it can, God forbid, show up in a very external explanation, which would be connected with external will, that the world needs fixing, God forbid. As I said in the other video, that I had dreams of this big wave coming, and they spoke about how much is the surge that they spoke about in Tampa?
12 to 15 foot
12 to 15 feet.
above the second story, almost above the second story of a building. Something that you can't survive.
So what does it say? Gal inayva bitu niflaos toratecha. Gal is a wave. Gal also means to
evacuate.
To be able to. No, gal means a wave.
A wave. I'm saying if the storm surge is that high, you need to evacuate a couple of 10, 20 miles away.
Right, but we're bringing in the deeper meaning.
Right.
So gal is to be able to look beyond, to look beyond the direct meaning of things, and then I will see the wonders of the Torah. So when you see, in giving this explanation, my hope is to create a nullification of the external manifestation of this pasuk to come into the higher manifestation. I can't interrupt my train of thought.
Go ahead.
Give me a second. And so, Kemaim liyam mechasim is as water reflects the yam. The yam is 50, numerical value 50. Yud is 10, mem is 40, which equals 50. So the Rebbe gives the explanation that Yam is the 50th gate of Bina, which is the gate of unity, the gate of oneness. And how is this so? Because we know that when we're counting Sphira and a new light comes into the world in the time of Pesach, we start to count 49 days, 7 midos into 7 midos, one into the other, weaving them together in order to facilitate the new light to be weaved into the fabric of creation. The 50th gate represents how all this becomes one. And in Aseret Yimeh Teshuva, it's taking what's in the Rosh, what's in the head, right? And actually inserting it into all 10 days of Tshuva. The Rebbe points out that there is Rosh Hashanah and Yam Kipper as separate, being higher and holier, but there's also a fabric of Rosh Hashanah and Yam Kippur in every day of Aseret Yimeh Teshuva, which means that the higher will, which is in Chachma and Bina before creation, takes expression as birthed literally after 9 days into Yam Kippur, which represents Das, which is representing the higher will. So why do we say Gemar Chatimat Torah? We should be sealed, because your Das represents when you seal the information into our beingness, when it becomes one with us. Umalea aretz dea et Hashem. The will is filled with the knowing. It's filling us so much that we don't even recognize the duality anymore. We don't recognize it anymore. We see beyond it. This creates, in turn, a change and a transformation in the nature of the world, where the world and the nations of the world don't function from a place of duality, one against the other. We have to do that work within ourselves first by accepting all our thoughts, everything that is spoken to us as coming to serve us. Then the world starts to begin to transform. And so then the end, which is Yam Kippur, right, is wedged into the beginning, which is the Keter. We're crowning God, right? We're crowning God with a new will. And so now this new will, the higher consciousness of the oneness, is vibrating into all the attributes. So when we say that the Torah already made a psak din, that there's 10 days in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it was already saying that the will that was prior to creation is already instilled into all the 7 days of creation. It's already there. And when the Rebbe says all we have to do is be maskim, he's saying that the work is already all done. You just have to accept it. Go beyond what you're seeing and allow yourself to create the vision of seeing the completion and the perfection of humanity and the totality of everything. And that becomes what vibrates and manifests into the physical world. You wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say two things. As my wife and her friend Esther were studying the Yam Kippur Sikha over the past couple of days, I was listening in. So they were FaceTime together, and I was listening in separately. But Esther said something that was hit me, and I remember it, and it was maybe you can comment on this. She said that Orly says, "Wow, Or so in the schus,
It says hi.
The whole point of creation is, created man. God created man to be the pinnacle of creation, the point of creation, to have a dira b'tachtonim. And what is a dira b'tachtonim? That we work on ourselves. We change our natures. We change our attributes. We change our character, self-refinement. So what does this have to do? So when we hold ourselves back, when my wife does something to trigger me, or I do something to trigger her, when we hold ourselves back and don't get angry and don't react and change our nature by not doing the thing that we're naturally accustomed to do, and that we're modifying our behavior and refining ourselves, when we hold back in the schus of that holding back, we can ask for anything, right? Isn't that what she said? In the schus,
yeah, I told him.
In the merit of us holding back and changing our nature, Hashem can allow us any blessings.
What's the name of the guy?
Anything we can ask for, any blessings.
What's the name of the mashgiach who told us this?
Boris.
So we met this Bukharian Jew.
Gib Meinhardt says it seems like the dualistic animal mind related to nature and materialism is going to be augmented and transformed into the mind of singularity of being with God, which balances all dualistic opposites.
Exactly. It's actually happening already. There are many in the world who are in the midst of awakening, and the more that are awakening, as they say, ma'at or docheha b'choshech, when one cell in the body, because we're all like a bunch of millions of cells that are in the body, we're one body, humanity. When one cell is awakening with such great light intensity, it has the power to transform all its surrounding cells just through osmosis. Anyway, this Bukharian Jew is very interesting. He was saying that
Boris at Segulas,
he has a natural tendency, with anger, and he held back his anger. And I don't know which Rebbe it was that he was.
The Biala Rebbe or some sure. Rebbe, one of the Rebbes.
Told him, he says, "I want you to go and bless everybody." And everybody looked at him like, "But this guy, And he says,
"The power of holding back."
He says, "You have now you have caused so much stir in heaven and pleasure that the heavens is willing to listen to anything, because you did exactly, you transformed your nature, and we're here to change nature. We're here to change the nature.
Make a dira b'tachtonim.
To create a transformation, a
dwelling place for God within this world, to show our divinity, to manifest our divinity as humans, but to show like we're like Hashem."
So I'm going to leave this just like they do in a show, that they leave you hanging with something.
There's also other thing I wanted to mention.
What?
And it's a question for you. I remember you were discussing with Esther also. You're talking about pregnancy and birthing, and the 333 and the Chabad and the Rosh Hashanah Yam Kipper, and how that relates to the spheres, the 333 and the 9 and the birthing.
Okay, so you want me to talk about
the Malchus is the birth, right? So which ones pertain to the 333, the 3 trimesters, and the 9 on the birthing, so and the Chabad and the Yom Kippur Rosh Hashanah?
So the Rebbe talks about going from the 9th into the 10th, which means on the 9th we're actually feasting, eating and drinking, and the 10th where there's the fasting. And he says like this: whoever eats and drinks on the 9th, it's as if there's 2 things. I see it written as in one way. When I saw the video of the Rebbe speaking, it was even stronger. So what's written, which was not reviewed by the Rebbe, the guy wrote, when we eat and drink on the 9th, it's as if we behaved in the same manner on the 9th and the 10th. When you listen to the Rebbe actually speaking, you hear him saying, whoever eats and drinks on the 9th, it's as if they ate and drank on the 9th and the 10th, and especially on the 10th.
And especially on the 10th.
So the question is, why is the Rebbe changing the language? Here we're talking about a change in the way we are practicing halacha, the way we're conducting halacha in regards to Yam Kippur. Keep in mind that on Yom Kippur, Shlomo HaMelech was crowned. He became king. And we got the second luchos, in which Hashem said, Salachti kidvarecha. And he actually feasted. He invited all the Zkenim to come and celebrate, and they ate and they drank on Yom Kippur. So eating and drinking on Yom Kippur is not a foreign concept. It was already something that took place, and the Rebbe says since it already took place in story form,
in King Solomon's time, Solomon or Shaul?
Shlomo
Melech.
That means that it's even more powerful than if it, when we read it as being a halacha.
Time of Mashiach.
In actuality, if we look in the Torah doesn't tell us to fast on Yom Kippur.
That's what I was going to say.
The Torah tells us in these words, and I'm going to leave it with this. We'll leave it this for you to ponder on. It says, "V'initim et nafshosechem." You shall afflict your soul on the 9th and the 10th. Well, on the 9th we feast, on the 10th we fast. Which is it? So affliction of the soul is all depending on the level of consciousness that
your awareness, your acceptance.
If we are in a place of duality and the animal soul hasn't been refined, then we have to afflict the animal soul and we have to separate from it in order to work on, refining it. Therefore, the work of afflicting the soul during exile is fasting. But if we're in the time where all the
separation, oneness.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to make the visual or something?
Separation, oneness.
Amen. Okay. But if we're now in a time where the Rebbe says the work has been done, we elevated the sparks, the buttons are shined, it means we no longer suppress the animal soul, then afflicting the soul takes on a different definition. Why? Because now we actually want to enhance the animal soul.
I'm getting hungry. And it's not even Yom Kippur yet.
The animal soul is refined, and it wants us to reveal the essence and source energy that is hidden inside of our DNA. In the body itself is the original will of God that wanted a world that reveals his oneness. Only once the animal soul had been refined, we are able to access that. So in the time of exile, afflicting the soul means that we have to suppress the animal soul. Thus, you fast. In the time of Mashiach, the Rebbe says, since we find our times in the days of Mashiach, the Rebbe says, therefore, the Hanhaga, the way we conduct ourselves on Yom Kippur changes. And he says we don't need any deep spiritual interpretations of that. He says literally the ability to see and open our eyes comes from actual physical eating and drinking. And he tells us we don't need any spiritual explanations for this, of what this means. It's literally the pashtus, the Rebbe says, eating and drinking opens up the eyes. And what does the Rebbe say on Yitet Kislev? He says we are actually not only found in the days of Mashiach, and Yom Mashiach, which is the first stage. Remember, we spoke about the first stage. But we are in the actual true and complete redemption. The Rebbe is already planting all the seeds. He's setting it forth. Okay, he planted all the seeds. All that is needed to be done is lageshet lashulchan shel hashar v'leviasan. Come to the table of the shahbar and the leviasan, which is literally the meal of eating and drinking on a fast day. And the Rebbe says, open your eyes, which means this eye, not these eyes, this eye, which will bring to these eyes, right? And that will bring in the higher revelation of the oneness consciousness. So
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yeah.
So we were in San Francisco. I was in shul, and her. Can I say what happened with your son-in-law?
Sure.
I'll say that I'm not going to mention his name. I was in shul, but her son-in-law.
I'm sure he doesn't mind if you mention his name.
Okay, Mendel and his friend Alon were discussing Yom Kippur, fasting on Yom Kippur, and Mendel is a rabbi shliach in San Francisco, and he was discussing.
He doesn't consider himself a shliach, but I do.
Right.
Anyway.
He was discussing if the law of fasting in Yom Kippur is a law from the Torah, the written Torah, or the oral Torah, meaning if it's a Torah from Sinai, the written Torah, or Torah from the Rabbanim, the rabbinical law from the oral Torah, and both they had different views. Alon and Mendel. Mendel was saying it's not from the Torah, and Alon was saying yes, it is from the Torah. It is says you have to fast on Yom Kippur from the Torah. So as a rabbi, he was saying,
he didn't say it's not. The actual saying that we have to fast is not there.
Right.
But it is mentioned to afflict the soul. He did say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were discussing that, and then then they started discussing whether if a congregant, if one of his congregants from a shul comes to him and says, well, should I, because it's such a hardship for me to fast on Yom Kippur, should I just stay home and fast because I can't make it to shul because it takes such stress going to shul and praying and fasting while going to shul? Should I just stay home and rest and sleep at home? Or should I go to shul? And he says he's not going to tell his congregant that he should be at shul on Yom Kippur and maybe have a glass of water and cheat and not fast and have a glass of water so he can make it to shul and sit through the services at shul. So as a rabbi, he's not going to tell his congregant to cheat, but really that would I think he was implying that's what he would advise. He wouldn't advise you to break Yom Kippur and have a glass of water to make it to shul. But yes, he would allow that if his congregant came on his own decision to have a glass of water so he can make it to shul instead of just sleeping at home on Yom Kippur, to break Yom Kippur, have a glass of water, break the fast, to be at shul.
There's this idea that when it comes to pikuach nefesh, when somebody's health or well-being is at stake, that you can push the whole Torah away in order for that person to be able to function.
Right, like the Alter Rebbe chop wood on Yom Kippur.
If the person is not feeling well and not able to function, then it's already, taking away the whole idea and the purpose of Yom Kippur. So he says you could push off the entire Torah. In order, a person can actually, nullify all the Torah and all the mitzvahs in order for him to be able to do many,
to continue his practice in the future.
It's already 47 minutes.
So we're 47 minutes. We said we were only going to do 25 minutes or maximum 30 minutes, and here we are at 48 minutes. But I wanted to do two things. First, before we end it, I wanted to do two things.
No, he wants to bring Sippy.
First, I wanted to bring Sippy. First, I wanted to show you the study with Esther and Batya, her friend Esther and Batya, is something. I want to show this picture. Show them this picture of the Baba Sali with the Rebbe. She feels like it's coming together when they study together.
Yeah, so Natan had a dream with the Baba Sali and the Rebbe many months ago, and the Baba Sali told him, you need to get a picture with me and the Lubavitcher Rebbe in it, with Melech HaMashiach in it, and we went right away. And I noticed that after that, I was connecting with a lot of Sephardic community, which my father's side is Sephardic, and they are so enriched. They're very alive in their emotions and in the way they practice Torah and mitzvahs. There's a lot of, it's like funny, it reminds me of this comedian that says the difference between, not to put chas v'sholom anybody down, the difference between the way an Ashkenazi Jew says Good Shabbos and the Sephardic says Good Shabbos. The Sephardic will say Shabbat Shalom, Motek Manishma, Shabbat Shalom, like with all this passion. And then you come to an Ashkenaz, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. Why are you showing Sippy anyway? I want to know.
It's our bird.
Yeah.
We've had her since she was a baby. She thinks Batya is her mother.
Anyway, when I study with Esther, she brings out the Sephardi in me, and she knows all this Kabbalah and Zohar and stuff. So she brings stuff that she knows from there, and I'm bringing from the Rebbe Sichas, and I almost feel like the Rebbe and the Baba Sali are sitting together. Not that I'm calling myself the Rebbe, or I'm calling her Baba Sali, but when you learn the Torah of a specific tzaddik, you connect to their soul and their energy. So I felt like there is this two energies coming together, and it's like we are like, wow, in heaven when we learn together. It's like incredible. We really enjoy. we bring out our different ways of seeing things, and there's shalom in there's, nobody's telling the other one is wrong or right. We just share, and it's a flow, and it's very, very beautiful.
Ow.
Okay, are we done?
So we got 40. Should we sing a song? A Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur song?
Okay, what comes to you?
Ose Shalom Bimromam, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael.
Yechi HaMelech, everybody. Shana Tova Metuka.
Yechi Adonenu, Morenu, V'Rabbeinu, HaMelech, HaMalka, HaMashiach, Vadai, Le'olam Ba'ed. Yechi HaMelech.
Yechi HaMelech, Yechi HaMelech. Okay.
Baruch Hashem. Peace.
Peace unto all.
Oh, what did he say? What did he say? Hold on.
Thank you for sharing all your
Orly, thank you for sharing all your wisdom. I was playing guitar with you guys. Thanks.
I love it.
Yes, Izzy Yofi.
Thank you.
We got 3 people watching. We got 1 like. We had 5 people watching at one point.
6. Trach good the time. Remember, think good, it'll be good. It's all in our power to manifest what's here. Okay?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. I feel something wet on my shoulder. I think she made on me.
Oh, she made on you?
When you just touched it.
I just touched it.
Really, thanks.
Hopefully it's not that bad.
Holding my anger in, guys. I'm holding it. All right.
End.